Okay, should we start?
Yes, we can start now.
Okay, sorry that we're late, firstly.
No problem.
Everyone. Thank you so much for joining our event on the Hereafter, What is Heaven Like? We are really lucky to be joined by Sheikh Bahmanpur to facilitate today's discussion.
Please feel free to send your questions in the chat box below, which will be answered after the discussion. And without further ado, can we now welcome Sheikh Bahmanpur with a loud salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى محمد. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله الطاهرين. If I can share my screen now, just to let me see. What is heaven like? Heaven is lost in all these works that I have here. Yeah. Okay. And right. Is it okay if I speak for about 35 minutes and then we have Q&A, or what is the time scale?
Yeah,
okay,
that's fine.
Inshallah. Inshallah. Okay, we want to talk about heaven. Heaven is a term with different meanings. Of course, in Arabic, heaven is sama, and the plural is samawat. So those of you who have recited the Quran carefully and attentively, certainly you have seen many verses of the Quran talking about sama and samawat. It's used in different meanings. One meaning is the sky above us. For example, Allah says, وَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً طَهُورًا. We have sent down from sama, which is heaven or sky. So this is one meaning. The other meaning is paradise. When we talk about heavens or some jannatan arduha samawat wal ard, the width and breadth of paradise is just like the whole samawat. And the third meaning is different layers and levels of the world of malakut. Now, what that is, we have a world of mulk. That is what we see around us, the way things work, the chain of causes and effects. Everything that you see has a cause, and that cause has another cause, and that cause has another cause. And then we know at the end of the day, of course, the prime cause of everything is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But that doesn't mean that that prime cause is absent in these links of different causes. Allah is present in every single cause when it wants to produce an effect. And this is the meaning of Allah is present everywhere, isn't it? However, we don't see that unless we are connected to another realm, which is the realm of malakut. Malakut is that realm in which everything is directly, well, even now everything is directly in the hand of Allah, but we cannot see it. If we see that, we see the malakut, as Allah mentions, وَكَذَلِكَ نُرِي إِبْرَاهِيمَ مَلَكُوتَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ. We showed Ibrahim the malakut of heavens and the earth. In that way, he becomes one of those who have certainty of heart that everything is in the hands of Allah. Now, that world of malakut, that's the world in which angels live. And the Quran says, وَكَمْ مِن مَلَكٍ فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ. There are many angels in the heavens. And heavens are different layers, other dimensions of the creation. And actually, when we die, we go to the lower area of that malakut that we call barzakh. Now, I'll talk about that. The angels live in these heavens, and the good humans in barzakh also live in malakut. The number of these heavens is given as 7 in the Quran, as samawat as-sab. So we have 7. That means there are 7 levels, 7 realms in which 7 different grades of creatures, whether angels or other things live, and different human beings with different calibers of piety and righteousness, they go to these layers and heavens after they die. These layers belong to this world, and they change in Darul Akhirah. Okay, that means in Darul Akhirah, we don't have samawat anymore, but we have something different, which is closer to God, even closer. We have Darul Dunya, Darul Akhirah. Darul Dunya is world of this life. Darul Akhirah is a life which comes after. It is a realm. Although we go to a new life, but we go to a new life into a new realm. We don't come back to our body in this realm. We come back in Darul Akhirah. Now, we do not enter Darul Akhirah by death. You may ask, when do we enter Darul Akhirah? No, not by death, not by death. We do not enter Darul Akhirah. Darul Akhirah, as I will explain, and we do not enter Akhirah one by one. Actually, everything would enter Darul Akhirah together. And it's not only us who enter Akhirah. The whole universe, with all its inhabitants, the angels, and whatever God has created, enter Darul Akhirah, and they enter it together. They enter Darul Akhirah together. Like a caterpillar which comes out of its cocoon and becomes a butterfly. You know, this world, the whole universe. You imagine this whole universe, and then this is in a stage of, like a stage of a caterpillar. You have seen a caterpillar, how ugly it is compared to a butterfly. One day, this whole world would evolve into a new realm, into a new world. And that is Darul Akhirah. And Allah has prepared that for us. All these heavens, galaxies, the whole universe, that we now think, why Allah has created so much galaxies, so many galaxies, for example. As far as we know, there are 2 billion galaxies in place, and with each of them with millions or billions of stars and planets. And one wonders why all these are created, for what use? Well, the use of it will come. And that's when, of course, the world as a caterpillar is changed to a butterfly coming out of its cocoon, like a seed which grows out of the earth and turns into a huge tree. Darul Dunya will one day break out of its shell and transform to Darul Akhirah. The qualities of butterfly world, as I call it, is so different from the qualities of the Darul Dunya or the caterpillar world, that it seems that Allah has created a completely new world. And it seems that He has created the creation, or He has recreated the creation. Now, however, I said we do not go to Darul Akhirah one by one. The whole world should go to Darul Akhirah. So where do we go after we die? After we die, where do we go? Well, to another stage of Darul Dunya, which is Barzakh. So Barzakh is part of this dunya. Our souls go there one by one and stay there. It's a wondrous world, wondrous world. You know, when we come out of the wombs of our mothers, how wonderful this earth is, and how vast, how incomparable this earth is with where we were in that dark and tight place. The Barzakh is exactly, compared to this earth, the same as that sort of, has the same difference. So, and Barzakh is the world of heavens and angels. So as soon as we enter Barzakh, we see angels. But angels, of course, have many, many different types, many different grades and personalities. With death, we enter a world of wonders. We will have dreamlike experiences which are far more different from what we know as existence now. It's very exponentially different. This layer of the world may be called the intermediary world. Why? Because it's between dunya and akhirah. Or it may be called world of images. Why alamul mithal? Because we live there. We have all qualities that we have now. We have color, we have beauty, we have size, we have eyes, we have ears, but with no mass. So imagine yourself in the mirror. Every part of you is there, but there's no mass there. Of course, that's roughly, almost. So that's why it's called world of mirrors, images, and the barrier, barzakh. Barzakh means barrier. Allah says when a person dies and goes to the next stage, min wara'ihim barzakhun ila yawmi yub'athun. There's a barrier behind them until they are resurrected. They cannot come back. That's why it's called barzakh. They cannot come back to this world. There's this thick wall there. And it's also called world of imagination, alam al-khiyal. Because, when you dream, you see everything, but there's no master. It's just like imagination. And because that world is free of mass, free of matter, then, of course, it looks like imagination. It's a wonderful world. We call it intermediate world because it's an intermediate stage between dunya and akhirah. It's a platform for the final takeoff of the newly completed soul, because our soul is completed when we leave this world, but it enters into the world of barzakh as a baby soul. Just like, for example, our body is completed while we are in the wombs, and then we come to this world to grow in a different stage of our life. That's the same thing. The soul, when it enters barzakh, is like a baby soul. It has to grow there. And it's called barzakh. I mentioned why, and I mentioned the verse as well. It's called world of images because whatever is there is like an image without mass and without density of matter. You may equally say that this world is a dense and dusty image of what is there. Because what is there is higher, is richer in life. What is there is closer to the realm of the angels and Malakutul A'la. Okay. Do we have feelings there? Of course. Sorrow and happiness, pain and pleasure, or any other quality that we experience in this world are but a faint picture of on the dull face of the matter reflected from that world. So whatever we feel here, just multiply it by 1,000 times and you feel it there as well. A world in which the heaviness of the matter does not slow down the life, just like what we see in the dream or imagination. That's why it's also called Alamul Khiyal. Khiyal is imagination. It's also called Alamul Khiyal, not because it's not real, but because its existence is more like what we experience in our imagination. Okay, let's just skip that. Okay, hence one can imagine how exciting the arrival of the soul that in that world may be, because it is just like khiyal. It is so lush, so astonishing, and so glorious that leaves the soul to marvel for a long time. And when I say that, I say it about every soul, because it doesn't matter whether you have been a kafir or a mu'min. You enter there in a world of wonders. However, of course, in that world of wonders, some people may be ill, may be sick, some people may be in pain, but that doesn't reduce anything from the quality of that life or that world. It is an experience like birth of a baby into this world, from the dark and tight world of the womb. The difference, however, is that the baby cannot remember anything from his previous world, while the baby soul is extremely astute and can feel the difference. So we do not lose our memory when we go to that world. We remember this world clearly. And we remember many things that, or anything for that cause that we have done in this world. So by entering into that world, the soul moves one step forward, and its power to comprehend the realities of the existence would increase. Hence, it is now one stage closer to the final destination, which is meeting with the Lord, as the Quran always mentions, Laqa Allah, meeting with the Lord, whatever that may mean. Of course, don't take that in a physical sense, because Allah is not physical and is not located in any place. Now, let's see the relationship of the soul and the body. Death happens when the soul leaves the body. The soul is very difficult to define. I mean, if you can just contemplate a little bit, what is my soul? What is where in the body? Now, in a simple expression, is what we call I. You know, when you say I, you don't mean your hand, your body, your mind, or anything like that. There is something in you which controls all these things, which makes your personality. Whether even you lose a hand or you lose part of your body, God forbid, still it's you. It doesn't make any difference. So in a simple expression, it's what we call I, the one who wills, who decides, who judges, who loves and hates. That is the soul. That's not mind. The mind is a conglomeration of absolutely separate selves. It's the one who uses the body as a means towards its ends. So the soul knows this world by the help of body. If we didn't have body, the soul had no connection, no access whatsoever to this world. Imagine if a person doesn't have ears or hearing ability. The soul is absolutely ignorant of voices in this world. Although it exists, the soul cannot experience it. If we don't have eyes, the soul cannot experience colors, shapes, things like that. So the soul can only know through body. And that's why the body is very important. The soul knows this world by the help of body. If it was not for the body, the soul would not have known anything. And the verse which says, Wallahu akhrajakum min butun ummahatikum la ta'lamuna shay'a. Allah has brought you forth from the womb of your mothers while you did not know anything. He made for you hearing, eyesight, and hearts, so that you give thanks, so that you know, so that you see the world of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Imagine a person without sense of touch, without sense of hearing, vision, taste. What sort of, how can we know God? It's impossible. So body is a means for the soul to know. So mutually, if it was not for the soul as well, the body would not have been able to doing anything. It's the soul which moves it. It's the soul which is the energy behind it, and decides, judges, hates, loves. The question is, what would the soul do after leaving this body? Okay, I mentioned all that to come to this question, because now we want to go to the world of angels, to a different realm. So what would the soul do without body? The soul cannot know anything without body. The soul cannot access anything without body. And now the body is left. The body is dead. It's not working anymore. The soul has left it in a sense. So what is he doing? The answer is that it lives in another body. So that body is a body which can access the realm of malakuts, a body which has realization of that world, the hearing, the vision, the sight, the taste, everything. But it all belongs to that realm. In the same way that the soul needed a physical body to communicate with physical world, it would need a methali body or a spiritual body, as some call it, to communicate with the world of barzakh or methali world. The spiritual body has senses appropriately installed to comprehend the elements of the world of barzakh. And that is another amazing creation of God. I mean, any creation of God you see is amazing. But inshallah, when we go there, well, when I say we, inshallah, you go there after 120 years. When we go there, we will see far more greater wonders of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. A considerable number of people, however, use these senses unconsciously as it is their way to faith. I mean, how do we believe in God? Something is, that body is with us now, but it has grown in us, but we do not realize it because it's just something hidden. But when we believe in God, we are using that, sensing something from the other realm. The prophets communicated with the angels through these senses, the senses of that spiritual body. That's why the angel comes to the prophet see the angel, other people do not see the angel. Why? Because the prophet is using that spiritual body, the other senses. Even, I mean, sometimes people may have mystical experiences around themselves while others cannot experience anything. Why? Because here the spiritual body is working, the senses of the spiritual body is working, there it's not working. Our prophet, peace be on him, went to Mi'raj with his spiritual body, not Isra. You know, we have two stages. One is Isra, when physically the prophet was transported from Mecca to Jerusalem with his physical body. Then from there, he went to Mi'raj. Mi'raj is different from Isra. Mi'raj is when he went to other realms. And of course, in other realms, people cannot go with their bodies, physical body. So it was with his spiritual body that he went, and saw and heard things which only could be seen by spiritual senses. The question is, where does this body come from? Because as soon as the soul wants to leave this body, there's another body there for him, for it. The answer is it grows with us as we grow in this world. In fact, we have one aspect of us rooted in the world of images, and that is why we can communicate with the world, with that world in our dream. Okay, let's when we enter barzakh, you know, initially we are somehow inducted by angels to that world. That's what you have heard, the angels come to the grave. Of course, when we talk about grave, we are not talking about the body. We are talking about the soul, which is somehow still feels connection with that body. The angels come to make an induction, okay, what this world is like, how you have to live here, then place the soul in its appropriate position, because that's a realm where souls have very, very different grades, levels. And when they are accommodated by the angels, they are of different types, much more than what we see in this world. Their food and drink and dress, their houses and furniture, their cities and neighborhoods are of diverse and dissimilar kinds. You may say, Do we eat and drink there? Yes, of course we do. Which is the hadith from Imam al-Sadiq alayhi salam, and also Quran alludes to that. Do we have dress there? Yes, of course we do. Do we have houses there? Yes, we have houses there as well. But it's all of imaginal, not imaginational. It's not imagination, it's real. It's image, like image, without mass. So there are cities, there are neighborhoods, they are very different from each other. What the Prophet saw in Mi'raj was an indication of such diversity. He says, I passed by people. Whatever he saw in Mi'raj was not in paradise or hell, because paradise or hell has not yet been activated, because they will be activated. They are there, but they will be activated on the day of judgment, after we are actually judged by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. However, what he saw the situation of people in heavens, so to speak, which are different layers of barzakh. He said, I passed by people who had lips like camels. Flesh was cut from their side and was put in their mouths. I asked Jibreel, who are these? He replied, these are the slanderers and backbiters. It means your actions here actually transform into certain things that you have to live with it. You have to live with it while you are in barzakh. And then, of course, Allah will judge that at the end of the day when we are resurrected, whether because that those actions are now scratched and forgiven and we can go to paradise or not yet. He said, I then saw a group of people in whose mouths fire was poured, which was let out from their backs. Jibreel said that they were those who devoured what belonged to the orphans and the oppressed. So it's not God who punishes us. It is our actions which are with us and transform into different things while we are in barzakh. Now they could not rise up but like those deranged by the devil's touch. And they continuously say, oh Lord, when will the hour set in? Because they are tired of that life there. And he, on the other hand, what he saw on the other hand, the good people in barzakh, those who are on higher levels of heavens. On the other hand, he saw a very different type of people. Then he says, of course, it's a very long hadith. I have just chosen parts of it. He says, then we ascended to the fifth heaven. That's the fifth depth of high rank of barzakh. I saw a middle-aged man with huge eyes. I never had seen anyone as awesome as him. He was surrounded by a large group of his people. They were so numerous that I was amazed. Who is this man? I asked Jibreel. This is Harun, son of Imran, brother of Prophet Musa alayhi salam. He replied. So I greeted him and he greeted me. Then we ascended to the seventh heaven. I saw a man with hoary hairs and beard, sitting on an armchair. I asked Jibreel, who is this man sitting on the gates of Baytul Ma'mur in the neighborhood of God? He said, this is your father Ibrahim. And this is your abode and the abode of the righteous among your ummah. Of course, when you die and come to barzakh. So the conclusion is that there is a specific type and space for every group in barzakh. Now, there are gardens in barzakh for good people. And you know, there are extremely good people. They are in the seventh heaven, okay, like Ibrahim. There are extremely evil people in which who in life, they never did anything good. Whatever they did was evil and vicious. And they are in the hell of barzakh, not hell of akhirah. And then the rest of people are in the middle. And in the middle is a large spectrum. Some people live in a small room, for example. Some people live in gardens. They have mansions and palaces in Barzakh. So when I talk about gardens of Barzakh, you can imagine what sort of life those people who live in these gardens have. It's vast expanse, bespoken landscapes, palaces and mansions, luxurious furniture in rooms and lounges, innumerable number of servants with inner and outer beauty who have no purpose but to serve their masters. And all these strengthens their love for God. You know, in this world, this type of extravagant life removes us away from God, moves us away from God. Why? Because we forget God when we see these things. We just indulge ourselves. But it's absolutely opposite in Barzakh and in Hereafter, because the more they use this, the more thankful they become. And their hearts is filled with more love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Abundance, accessibility, ease of communicating and communication. What language do you speak there? Well, there's a universal language. In a sense, we don't need any language. We can just read each other's minds. We just stand in front of each other and know what we want to say to each other. Or maybe there's universal language there. Question, what's the difference between these gardens and the gardens of paradise? If they are so good, so rich, so pleasant, so what's the difference? The difference is that, okay, forget about this. The difference is that this is still the intermediary stage of our life. What's the difference of this life and life of the baby in the womb? Well, it's huge. What's the difference of this life and our life in Barzakh? Is huge. And what's the difference between life in Barzakh and in final paradise, eternal paradise? Is huge. It's just sort of uplifted grades, stages of life. And the hadith talks about visits as well. People go and visit each other. Even people who live in this middle ground, middle area, if they are permitted, they can go into that paradise of Barzakh and meet prophets, imams. If they are permitted, they can go to that seven heavens and meet Ibrahim alayhi salam. They can meet Yusuf. They can meet Jesus, peace be on him. If they are, of course, if they are good enough to be qualified to move into that realm. Okay, because we are short of time, I just passed through this very quickly. All right, because I wanted to talk about angels, because in that realm, we encounter the angels as in paradise as well. As in the Quran says, وَالْمَلَائِكَةُ يَدْخُلُونَ عَلَيْهِمْ مِنْ كُلِّ بَابٍ. The angels greet them from every door. Every door you open, the angels greet you because they love you. Even in this world, the angels love us. However, they don't like evil acts. So if you commit an evil act, they just close their eyes and go away. But after a while, for example, if you pray, you are fasting, they are attracted to you again. By entering Barzakh, we enter into the world of angels. Although we may not see the archangels, but we will see many of them. Certainly, we do not see Jibreel or Mikael. They are the angels of the higher council. But because angels have many different types, tiny angels, angels who are working on the earth, angels who are looking after us, angels who are working in the second heaven, third heaven, fifth heaven. So there are very different types. What type of creatures are the angels? The angels are extremely intelligent, extremely sensitive creatures, and they have great love for human beings. And since Allah told them prostrate for Adam and told them why they have to do it, they have developed a great love for human beings. Of course, the evil action would deter them from loving the perpetrators of those actions anymore. In the Quran, in Surah Shura, it says, the angels praise the glory of their Lord and they ask forgiveness for those on earth. Surely God is forgiving, merciful. So they ask forgiveness for us, whatever we do. Now, what population do angels have? The population of angels exceeds all other creatures. Allah has not created anything in this world more than angels, as we have seen in this hadith. مَا مِن شَيْءٍ خَلَقَهُ اللَّهُ أَكْثَرَ مِنَ الْمَلَائِكَةِ. So you can imagine all the galaxies, planets, stars, or whatever Allah has created in them, the number of angels is more than them. And of course, their ranks and categories are more than all other creatures as well. They have different tongues. There are different tongues of angels under a commander, and that commander is under another commander, and until it goes up to Jibreel, who is the chief of angels, as the Quran says, he's obeyed by all the angels. In a very broad classification, they are divided to the angels of Malakut and the angels of Jabarut, or lower Malakut and higher Malakut. As I said, Malakut has different grades, and that's what the world of Barzakh is actually. Where Ibrahim was living was at the highest level in Malakut al-A'la. So the latter are also called the higher council, or al-Mala'ul A'la, the higher council of angels. These are the ones to whom Allah gives commands, and they give command to other angels to do things. As the Quran says, مَا كَانَ لِي مِنْ عِلْمٍ بِالْمَلَإِ الْأَعْلَى إِذْ يَخْتَصِمُونَ. I have no knowledge of the higher council when they disputed about the creation of Adam. That is, of course, about the beginning of creation. The angels of the higher council cannot be compared with other angels in terms of their wisdom, their power, their knowledge, and their inherent beauty. What they know of God is not comprehensible for the angels of Malakut. You know, the angels also comprehend God at different grades and levels. What we usually see after death are the Malakuti types of angels, not those angels who are from Mala'ul A'la. There is no reproduction among the angels. So every angel is created on his own, or its own, because angels do not have male or female. So you can imagine, Allah just creates an angel. There's no, for example, the angel is not born of another angel, so to speak. It's wonderful. I mean, I'm just dying to see how an angel is created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we go to the next realm, inshallah, maybe Allah shows that to us. Every day God creates new throngs of angels. And okay, the angels do not eat or drink. They live on the breeze of the throne, which is another term for praising Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They have a spiritualized ears and intelligence. Their ranks are determined by their jobs. Their function determines who they are. And mind you, in Barzakh also we have functions, and our functions determines our personality. In paradise too, we have functions, and our functions determines our rank and level. In Nahjul Balagha, Imam Ali says, أنشأهم على صور مختلفات وأقدار متفاوتات. He created them in different forms and dissimilar measures. Or he says, they have taken the possessor of the throne, Allah, a treasure for their day of great need, because they will die as well and they will be resurrected. As I said, everything together will enter world of Akhirah. The angels usually live on thrones live in throngs, the number of which differ from a few hundred to hundreds of thousands. Members of each throng pray together and praise God in harmony. وَإِنَّا لَنَحْنُ الصَّافُّونَ وَإِنَّا لَنَحْنُ الْمُسَبِّحُونَ. When we stand for tasbih, we make lines like Salatul Jama'ah. And the description of the Prophet, of some of the angels he saw in his Mi'raj is fascinating. The description of the Prophet of some of the angels he saw in his Mi'raj is fascinating. Just to finish by this fascinating experience of the Prophet, peace be upon him, about the angels. Jibreel went up to heaven of dunya. So we have heaven of dunya, that's the lowest heaven, and until to seventh heaven. And I also ascended with him. He's describing his Mi'raj. An angel named Ismail was in charge. And every angel has a name, by the way. We don't know them, of course. An angel named Ismail was in charge there, and his instructions were to stop any eavesdropping, the evils, the shayateen, who want to eavesdrop, to learn something about future. Ismail would not allow them, as the Quran mentions. 70,000 angels stood watch under his command, each with a further 70,000 angels under him. Can you imagine the number? He asked Jibreel, who is this person with you? Jibreel replied, this is Muhammad. He asked, has Muhammad been appointed to his mission already? Jibreel replied, yes. At this time, he opened the door and greeted me with a salutation of peace. I returned his greeting and prayed for his forgiveness, and he prayed for mine in turn and said, welcome, O righteous brother and O righteous messenger. Then, as we have mentioned previously, the seven heavens are all dimensions of the realm of Malakut. Opening the door, as it was in the hadith, open the door for me. Here means granting permission to enter the dimension that the Prophet was allowed access to during the Mi'raj. Thereafter, angels came forward to welcome me until I entered the heaven of this world, the Sama'ud Dunya. Every angel who met me along the way was smiling in delight. And in this manner, we reached a huge angel. He was a creature bigger than any I had ever seen before. He had a stern face and a fearsome appearance. He welcomed me like the rest and prayed for me, but he did not smile like other angels. And I did not observe in him the happiness and delight of the other angels. I asked Jibreel, who is this angel? Truly, he is intimidating. He replied, you should be intimidated. We are all afraid of him. This is Malik, the angel in charge of hell, who has never smiled all his life, because Allah has created him like that. Then I met an angel that God had created in an extraordinary fashion. Half his body was made of fire, and the other half of ice. Mind you, these are not material things. These are fire and ice of the methali form, as I explained, of the world of Barzakh. Neither did the fire melt the ice, nor did the ice extinguish the fire. The angel was calling out in a loud voice, all praise belongs to the one who has held back the heat of this fire from melting the ice and kept this ice from extinguishing the fire. O God, who has kept a balance between the fire and ice, make the hearts of your believers compassionate towards one another. Well, this angel is created to make this dua so that that blessing comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's why I said these angels are very benevolent towards human beings. They love human beings, actually. I asked Jibreel, who's this? He replied, it's a type of angel that God has assigned to all corners of the heavens and around the earth. He is the greatest well-wisher for the believers. From the day he was created, he prays for them by continually invoking God with the same words that you heard. As it is clear from this report, and is mentioned in other reports, the number of these type of angels is huge. Then I saw two angels who were supplicating together. One was saying, Allahumma a'ti kulla munfiqin khalaf. Oh God, increase the wealth of everyone who spends in charity. While the other was saying, Allahumma a'ti kulla mumsakin talaf. Oh God, take away the wealth of every miser. Wow. This is what happened. This is what happens actually in our life. You give, Allah replaces it. You keep, it's wasted. So these are the angels who are doing this. Then we pass by a group of angels whose form and features defy description. The words of the tradition are, as the Prophet explains, is خَلَقَهُمُ اللَّهُ كَيْفَ شَاءَ وَوَضَعَ وُجُوهَهُمْ كَيْفَ شَاءَ. Allah created them the way He liked. It means I cannot explain, I cannot describe them. It was so wonderful, so beautiful. Every part of their bodies was engaged in the praise and glorification of God, each with a different voice. Their voices were raised in praise and in weeping out of awe of God. I asked Jibreel about them. He said, they have been created just like this. None of them have ever spoken to the angel next to them, and they have never raised their heads out of fear and awe of God, and have never looked down either. You see how different these types of angels are? And I greeted them with a salutation of peace. Without looking at me, they replied with a slight nod. Jibreel said to them, this is Muhammad, the messenger of mercy. He's a prophet of God, whom he has sent to guide his servants. He's the last of the prophets and the best of them. Will you not speak with him? As they heard this from Jibreel, they came towards me and greeted me warmly and prayed for goodness for me and my nation. And apparently, this was the only time they ever talked since eternity. Then we ascended to the second heaven. It was full of angels who were, this was just the first heaven, okay? The Sama'ud Dunya. It was full of angels who were overcome with complete humility and awe before God, and their faces were beyond description. And the same was his experience in all other heavens. So that was just a very, very short description of angels, the way the Prophet saw them in Mi'raj. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi tahirin.
Thank you so much, Sheikh, for that thought-provoking lecture. Everyone benefited. We are now opening the floor for Q&A. Please feel free to turn your mic on to ask a question, or ask them and send them in the chat box.
While we're waiting for the questions, I've been sent a few questions. So one of the questions that we received was, how big are the angels? Because there's narrations that they're really, really huge. So how big are they?
Oh, what? Sorry?
How big are the angels in size?
You know, that size is not like sizes in this world, okay? It's just like, for example, Imam Ali says, if Jibreel, this is an example, if Jibreel sets foot on the earth, his head would go to other galaxies. So if we want to imagine it in this sort of sizes that we know in this world. However, when he appeared to the Prophet, he appeared like an ordinary man. You see, that was the way the Prophet saw him. But Prophet only saw Jibreel in his angelic form twice. And that was formidable, of course, for him, especially in the first time when he saw Jibreel. You can imagine how, of course, amazing that size was.
Thank you. Another question I received was, did angels get the choice to be humans or be angels? Because obviously we got to choose whether we wanted to come into this world or not. So did they get the choice as well or not?
Oh, did we? I don't remember if someone asked me whether I wanted to come to this world or not. No one has any choice. This is absolute compulsion. Why? Because how could we decide with our small minds whether we want to come to this world or not? It's Allah, with his immense wisdom, with his unlimited knowledge, who decides who should be created, who should be what. Angels are angels, we are animals, horses are horses, birds are birds. No one decides about that. However, Allah says, anything that I have created, I will give them full blessing of their creation. So as human beings, we receive our full blessing. As angels, they receive their full blessings, because this world is made with a grand plan. And grand plan means that this number of human beings are needed, this number of angels are needed, this number of animals are needed, this number of galaxies are needed. And Allah is not going to ask us with our very, very, very limited, tiny knowledge whether you want to be a human or not. Certainly. He makes his will. That's the meaning of Jabbar. He's compelling. He rules. He's the Malik. But we know that there is no injustice. There's no dhulm. Nothing will be, no wrong will be done to anyone, whether they are angels, animals, or human beings.
So another question we've received is about how you mentioned spiritual body and emotional body in your lecture. And the question is, how do we access our spiritual bodies?
Well, we do not need to do that here, because eventually we are going to leave this world with that spiritual body. Some people actually go through certain spiritual exercises to sharpen that. And sometimes even while they're alive, they detach themselves, their soul, with the spiritual body from the physical body, although they are still alive. But if God wanted this to happen, he would have given this ability to everyone. This is not something that we need to be concerned about. Of course, as we grow in faith, as our faith increases, then the spiritual body starts to realize more things in the world than what we know now. However, it is not advised that we go through those self-mortification or those exercises so that we get access to that spiritual body in this world. That is something for the next world, inshallah.
Thank you for answering that question. So there was a question where there's information that the different stages of heaven are made out of different substances, such as ruby, pearls, iron, brass. Is that true? And if it is, then how does it differentiate?
Well, this is about the physical, the whole universe. We call it the something which is under the first heaven. These are not physical things. These are sort of methali, as I said, the spiritual, or we can say metaphysical. So when we talk about seven heavens, they are metaphysical heavens. Otherwise, everything in the universe is just heavens of this world, or the skies for us. So iron, other metals are all in different planets, right, in this world. However, whatever we have in this world has a correspondence in that world. So we have iron here, we have iron there, but not the iron with material mass, okay? It's something which is the source of this iron with material mass.
Thank you for that. And another question we received is, when we die, our grave will turn into a garden. Is this the starting of Barzakh? If not, how do we enter Barzakh after death?
Yes, of course. As soon as we die, we enter Barzakh. But it's like a hotel. You go to the lounge first, then you have to go to the reception, you have to be admitted, you have to be given your room number, and then you go to your room. The same thing happens. The angels come, they examine you, they sort of assess which room should you go. Should they give you a suite or just a room, single, double, whatever, you know? So yes, we enter the world of barzakh, but there's an induction process until we are actually accommodated in our place.
Thank you for answering that question. Another question we received was, why do we need a body in this world, but jinns don't have a body in this world?
Why do we need a body in this world?
Yeah, but jinns don't.
Jinns have body as well. No, jinns, but the substance from which the jinn are created is different from the substance from which we are created. So the Quran says that human was made of mud or clay, and jinn were made of the smokeless fire, the smokeless blaze of fire. It doesn't mean they are fire or they are fiery, in the same way that it doesn't mean they are mud or muddy. It has been an evolution of that mud into amino acids, and human being has been created. The same thing with jinn. So jinn have physical body as well. And they will die, they will go to barzakh, they will be resurrected, the same thing as human beings.
So another question we've got is, do feelings such as anger, pain, and sickness and depression exist in barzakh?
Yes, of course it does. It does. Pain, pleasure, happiness, sadness, sorrow and regrets, freshness, all these things exist in barzakh depending on where we are accommodated, what sort of life we have led in this world. So they all exist there as well.
Another question we received was, why has God created so many angels?
Well, you know, I hope I could meet God and ask him the same question. I don't know. Why God creates so many people? I mean, people have created, say, 1 million people. Wasn't that enough? So many. You know, Allah is grand. And I mean, we cannot imagine how grand he is, how great he is. And it's only by seeing this huge creation. I mean, you see the universe, you see the galaxies, you see the stars, and then exactly the same thing, but multiplied by several thousand, you see in the world of angels. The same thing you see in the higher heavens of the angels. For us, this is great number. For him, it's just a small thing.
Okay, I think we've finished with questions, unless anyone has anything to add. If you'd like to unmute at all. Otherwise, I'd like to wrap up for today, for this program. Thank you for attending, everyone, and thank you again to Sheikh for gracing us with your time and your knowledge. We're very grateful to have had you.
And we've learned so much, so thank you so much for coming on here today.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure. Inshallah,
yeah, thank you.
Allah inshallah, Allah appoint guardian angels for every one of you.
Ameen.
And inshallah, you live your life full of happiness, pleasure, iman. And when you go to barzakh, inshallah, you live in high grades of barzakh, inshallah.
Ameen. So yeah, thank you again, everyone, for joining. And if you haven't, then please do follow us on our social media at Al-hur to stay up to date with future events. And thank you again, Sheikh, for facilitating today's discussion.
Thank you so much.
If anyone has any questions after the program, then please feel free to message us on our social media. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Khuda Hafiz.